Let us start this episode by talking about processed foods, sweeteners, and studies, and how they can confuse you and kind of lead you potentially down the wrong path in terms of what you think you know, or how media interpret studies, or maybe just possibly they take the cherry picking to another level and take the best juicy bits and put those into headlines for you to confuse the fuck out of you when it comes to all these different sorts of nutritional things. So what I wanted to do is spend a little bit of time diving into a few different studies that have come out in recent times and been posted on social media by various different people, and kind of give you my take on A, what they mean, and B, how I think they will be interpreted incorrectly in the future, and then served for a purpose of someone who's got an agenda of these things are good or bad or whatever. So beware, this is like the freaking Nostradamus of fitness here. I am predicting the future. So let's start with a study from a guy called Kevin Hall. Now, he's actually a good dude, and this is a good study, logically put together and well run, and it's got some use in terms of its output. So let me talk you through what actually is going on here. Now, this was a study about processed versus unprocessed foods and how they can have an influence on weight gain or weight loss. So what he's done is he's basically taken 20 weight stable individuals. So they haven't got like eating disorders or anything like that. They're weight stable. And he's put them through, like half the subjects have gone through a ultra processed diet. So think like Cheerios and all that sort of stuff. And then one group of people has gone through an unprocessed diet. So think fresh fruit, think yogurt, all these sorts of things. Obviously, various different meals at different times of day. Followed that for 2 weeks. Then they flipped it round and they alternate the diet that they were on for another 2 weeks. So basically, what they've done is matched each meal. So if you're having a breakfast meal in unprocessed versus a breakfast meal in the processed, they're matched for like fiber, energy, those sorts of things. Now, interestingly, what I found that when on the processed foods, what they're basically saying is on either diet, you can eat as much as you like. You can eat as much as you like. So there's no like calorie restriction. It's not calorie restricted overall. So they're not saying, well, both groups are on 2,000 calories and then let's see what happens versus processed and unprocessed. That's not what's happening here. It's saying, here's some processed meals and here's an unprocessed meal. Eat as much as you want. Now, what happened is that the people, when they were on the processed diet, overate. They overate quite significantly to the tune of like 500 calories. Now, that's an extra meal that you can have in most cases. And it caused a body weight gain of 0.8 of a kilo in that 2-week period. So given processed foods, highly processed diet, they gained almost a kilo in weight over 2 weeks because they just had free reign, not calorie restricted. They just had free reign to eat as much as they want. They overate. And interestingly, in this study, they overate on carbs and fat. They didn't overeat on protein. Conversely, the people who are on an unprocessed diet, or when they flip to an unprocessed diet, actually lost around about 1 kilo, 1.1 kilo, give or take. Therefore, suggesting that if you are not calorie restricting, you're not focusing on calories, if you prioritize and focus on an unprocessed food diet, then you are more likely to potentially lose weight. Whereas if you are consuming lots of highly processed foods and not necessarily tracking calories, there's a very high risk that you are going to overeat on those particular foods because A, they are highly palatable, meaning they taste fucking good. B, they're easily available, and C, they're probably fucking cheap. So it's easy for you to overeat because you taste a bit of the ice cream or the pizza or whatever, or the Cheerios. They don't fill you up so much because they're not much volume for the calorie exchange that you're getting. So you generally just eat more. You eat more, you eat more. And when someone's saying you can have as much as you like and there's no cap on it, then you are generally going to put on weight. With your diet is really focused on that highly processed stuff. Whereas if you said, well, actually, I'm going to eat the unprocessed food, an unprocessed food diet, then again, if you're not calorie restricting, you are naturally going to eat less because that food is going to fill you up to make you feel fuller. It's going to have probably lower calorie in general, lower calorie, and it's probably going to be less palatable, i.e. it's not going to have like the amazing taste of a donut every time you dig into some fucking broccoli. It's not really going to be the same exchange, and you will kind of just naturally stop eating earlier on that unprocessed food diet. Now, my prediction here is that this study, which is clearly quite good, quite useful, is going to be taken by mainstream media or maybe some Instagram gurus who have an axe to grind against processed food to say, look, this diet says processed foods make you gain weight and unprocessed foods are better, therefore go for clean eating and shit like that. But that's not what it's saying. If this study was trying to prove that, it would have calorie controlled each diet and then said, okay, did the processed food, where we were, say, matching 2,000 calorie diet for each person, for example, did a highly processed diet on 2,000 calories have any adverse effect to 2,000 calories on an unprocessed food diet? That would be a logical way to say whether processed foods were good or bad for weight loss in that scenario. Whereas this is saying if you're just eating whatever you want, you're eating freely, you're not counting calories, then an unprocessed food diet is going to help you potentially lose weight. So that's how I think it's going to be manipulated, and I think is going to be taken down the wrong way. So what potentially is a good study that people can learn from, then potentially is going to take an off down an avenue, and you watch the Daily Mail fucking rinse out a load of headlines around that fact, which actually is just plain bollocks. Now, what I would say is I had this exact conversation with a client the other day, which was that even though we are calorie controlling, we are monitoring calories, we are tracking calories, and you can have whatever you want. You can have a little bit of chocolate, you can have a little bit of this, that, and the other. It does make sense to try and get habits in place that predominantly have your diet focused on unprocessed foods because of this exact reason. The sense that when you are on a diet and you are progressing forward with that diet, over time, you want to almost wean yourself off of calorie counting. You don't want to be stuck to fucking MyFitnessPal, and not fucking MyFitnessPal, but you know what I mean, for the rest of your life. You want to be at a point where you really understand your diet, you understand your body, you understand nutrition, so that you can just intuitively eat. If you've got habits that are based around unprocessed foods being the vast majority of your diet, that process becomes so much easier. And therefore, you know, if you are calorie controlling your diet now and really heavily trying to ram in as many processed foods as you want because you love fucking Pop-Tarts, you love donuts, you love cereal, you love all these different sorts of things, ice cream, pizza, all of this stuff, you love it. And therefore you're using this calorie controlling mechanism in order for you to ram as much of that food in as you possibly can. That's okay. You're still going to lose weight. Okay, you might not have the most optimal diet, the most nutritious diet, but you will lose weight if it's calorie controlled in the right way. But think about the future. Think about when you want to stop calorie counting, you haven't put the habits in place, you haven't put the diet in place that's going to enable you to say, actually, I don't want to calorie count anymore. I've done this for like 2 years. I don't want to calorie count anymore. What the fuck do I do? Now you haven't got habits based on unprocessed food and highly nutritious foods. It's going to fill you up naturally. It's going to be much harder. So even though calorie counting works, and yes, you can have unprocessed food, it makes 100% sense, as this study shows, to really dominate your diet with unprocessed foods. But it doesn't mean that processed foods are bad. That's not what it's saying. So despite what you kind of may glean from newspapers that may take this study and kind of just put it all over the place, then, you know, just know the truth. I'm bringing you the truth here. Now let's move on to another one, which I saw on a post by someone I follow about CNN. CNN have put an article up today, February the 15th, that says drinking 2 or more diet beverages a day is linked to a high risk of stroke and heart attacks. Now, this is one that you may hear all the time about artificial sweeteners, because that's really what it's kind of focusing in on here, not necessarily the diet drink. It's the artificial sweeteners within the diet drink that it's kind of focusing on it. Now, there's a couple of fundamental problems with this, is that they've picked out diet beverages as being this thing. Now, lots of other low sugar foods have sweeteners in them, because that's how they get the sweet taste in it without having the calories. They have these artificial sweeteners that create that sweet taste, so the food still tastes good, doesn't taste like fucking ass, and then you can still get lower calorie versions of those things. Now, that's not exclusive to diet drinks. That's across a whole myriad of different foods. So maybe you can see here that maybe this person has got an axe to grind against diet drinks, or they know that putting diet drinks in that title is going to generate a lot of activity towards their article. The other interesting thing is that if you scroll down this particular article, in freaking bold letters, it says, this study does not show causation, only correlation. Now, that's important. Now, some of you is thinking, well, what the fuck does that mean? What is correlation and what is causation? So let me use a little bit of an example that I learned on the MNU course. So the Mac Nutrition Uni course, so very, very good course. And there was an analogy used around this particular topic, actually, where it was really kind of made it make sense in a really kind of basic way for me, which is really cool. So here it is. Now, you could say correlation would be that leaving school at 16 and teenage pregnancy are correlated. So leaving school at age 16 and teenage pregnancy are correlated. But leaving school at 16 did not impregnate anybody. There's the difference. So that leaving school at 16 didn't cause someone to be pregnant. That act did not cause the other act. And especially for the dudes out there. So that's the difference, is just because some things are correlated does not mean that event, that activity, that thing caused the other thing to happen. And this is kind of true for lots of different things. And again, like another example you can use on diet drinks is that a lot of studies, or some studies that, publish this associational data, that might be another description that you hear about it, is that they're done via survey. So for example, like if you were an obese person and you went to the doctor and the doctor said to you, you need to lose weight, dude. You need to lose a few pounds. Let's have a look at your diet. What are you drinking? What are you drinking? Oh, you're drinking freaking 2 liters of Coke, full sugar Coke. You're 2 liters of full sugar Coke. Can't you just swap that for diet? Yeah, no problem. I can do that. Cool. Then, okay, let's fast forward. Now this dude has a survey. It says, right, okay, how much do you weigh and what's your height? Oh, you're obese. Do you do diet soft drinks? Yes, I do. Yes. Okay. Oh, shit. Now he's obese and he drinks diet soft drinks. Well, okay, he does drink diet soft drinks, but again, that didn't cause his obesity and his weight gain. So that's just two examples, but there's lots of different reasons why just because two things correlate doesn't mean there's causation, and doesn't mean, again, that this thing is bad. And then just to hammer that point home, there's another study that I'll credit to Lane Norton for bringing to my attention. So if anybody doesn't follow Lane Norton, then they should do, at BioLane on Instagram. He doesn't need a plug from me. He's got fucking hundreds of thousands of followers. Anyway, Toes et al. I always think that the et al. Thing is just like other dudes. This dude was the main dude, and et al. just some others that I couldn't be bothered to mention. That's how they reference studies. In 2009, so this is a meta-analysis. We're getting into some detail here, people. Meta-analysis. Now, meta-analysis basically means study of studies. So what they've done is they've taken all of the data from other different studies. They've kind of normalized all of the data, pulled it up, and so that you've got a real big data set to draw some conclusions from. It basically is a really good way to look at a big subject across a broad range of studies and pull together some information. Now, this study showed that people who consumed artificial sweeteners did not weigh more than those who didn't. Artificial sweeteners did not lead people to be hungrier or eat more. Artificial sweeteners did not elevate risk of various forms of cancer. And therefore, sweeteners do not trick your body into gaining weight, cause you to eat more, or cause cancer. And there's a bunch of other studies that actually show that to be true. And you might hear that people who say, well, sweeteners cause this, that, and the other. Now, often one of the studies that is popularly used by people who have this sort of axe to grind against sweeteners is stuff that's performed on rats. Now, you should really understand that a study performed on rats rarely translates to a human. Almost never do the results translate to a human. So anytime someone says, well, I saw this study on some rats. Well, okay, well, unless I'm going to fucking shrink about 6 foot and then grow a tail, I'm not going to be fucking interested in what you're about to say, me old China. Now, what they're basically doing in this study as well, one of the most sort of popularly used studies on these rats was basically they fucking mega dose these rats on sweeteners. Now, to the tune of the equivalent amount where you'd have to drink like almost 2,000 cans of diet drinks per day to get the same amount of mega dose they gave to these rats. Now, you could mega dose fucking anything and you probably get some ill effects on someone. So let's say, you normally, someone who had a can of Coke every day or a can of Diet Coke every day, 1 can of Diet Coke. So you're talking that they're gonna have 2,000 times that amount every day, 2,000 times. Now, if you had like, I don't know, an apple, so an unprocessed apple, a very nice, organic, go for a fucking organic apple if you're really worried about it. An organic apple. Now, you had this organic apple, you have 1 a day because you want to be healthy. Now, if I gave you 2,000 organic apples, I think you'd probably get some ill health effects. You wouldn't feel too great after 2,000 fucking apples. So this is one of the things where studies are created, studies are done, some good, some bad, some indifferent, some are driven by people's agenda. Some people are just basically lie and hide the truth. Now, veering slightly off on a different topic, there's a study around HMB, which is funded by a guy, funnily enough, who invented HMB and got HMB to sell. But the results were that in terms of building muscle, HMB is better than steroids. Better than steroids. Fuck off, mate. Now, I've looked at many a dude on a stage on the Olympia, and not one of them is taking HMB instead of steroids. Now, so yeah, there's some fucking jiggery pokery going on with your data, my old freak, because HMB does fuck all in terms of building muscle. Anyway, so you get all these studies that are floating around, some good, some bad, some indifferent, some driven by people's agenda. And therefore, when you hear these types of headlines, these publications spouting this thing like 2 cans of Diet Coke linked to stroke and heart attacks and processed foods are bad for you and all this sort of stuff, they are really, really cherry picking certain pieces of information, potentially from a good study, but cherry picking information, not giving the full picture and not breaking these things down and giving you the actual truth of what's going on. Because sadly, they may have something to sell, be it a newspaper, be it a supplement, be it a product, be it a diet, be it coaching or something like that. A lot of people have this shit to sell to you. And this is why over a number of different posts and things like that, what I tell you to do is find a handful of people that you trust and then fuck the rest. Really do fuck the rest, because you can tie yourself up in knots looking at all this sort of shit. So obviously you want me to be one of the 5, obviously, but then go through and pick like 4 other people that have all the same sort of view, put out all the same message, so that when you hear this shit, then you can really rely on those people to give you the right answer. Because as soon as you start to pull in like random study from over here, random study from over there, then, this guy on Instagram said this guy on Instagram said that, you will tie yourself up in knots and go fucking nowhere. And that's not what you want. So that's my little Nostradamus for the start of 2019. That study, the Kevin Hall study, which is a good study, showing some good outcomes that can be actually used in practical terms to help people. I feel that might be taken, cherry-picked by certain people, and then posted as a study to show that processed foods are inherently bad for you, which is not what it kind of says. And then also this shit around artificial sweeteners will just keep on rumbling and rumbling and rumbling. But always look through the detail and say, does it reference that this caused that? That's the key thing you want to remember. And I guarantee you it won't. I guarantee you it won't. But that's just my little life lesson for you right now. Cool. So the other thing I wanted to just talk to you about before you disappear, before you go and enjoy the rest of your day, is that I have redesigned and repackaged the Lean Life Kickstarter pack. So if you haven't picked this up before, here's what you're going to get. On day one, I'm going to send you, as soon as you give me your email address, because that's how I'm going to send you shit, I'm going to send you a free 4-week training program. Awesome. Got exercise videos in there. You've got a workout planner, like a tracker type of thing in there as well. Awesome. Day two, I'm going to send you a guide on how to calculate your calories, calculate your macros to make sure you're on track and progressing to your fat loss, muscle building goals really, really well. Day three, I'm going to send you a guide on how to combat cravings. Having some unprocessed food in your diet is one of those things. I'm going to send you that. On day four, I'm going to send you a cheat sheet about how to live leaner at work. On day 5, I'm going to send you some professionally created recipe packs. Then on day 6, I'm going to take a bit of a rest because, you know, even God rested, even though it didn't exist, but let's gloss over that. And then on day 7, I'm going to send you a video of how to basically meal prep like a badass. So cool. So over the course of a week, you're going to get a ton of free information that is going to basically kickstart your journey to a leaner, healthier, stronger life where you will have a body that is sexy as fuck and an absolute badass. So if you're interested in that, click that link I've put in the notes and it will take you there. You can then start that journey, start that process, and then basically we can have you looking like a badass in no time. So I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, let me know. Fly over to Instagram where I spend most of my time. You can find me at iron_paradise_fitness. But for now, I'll say keep living the lean life and I'll see you for the next one.